Good morning, everyone. I'm Emmanuel van Houdenhoven. I am the Sales and Recruitment Manager at Undutchables Recruitment Agency. And I'm actually today in The Hague, in our branch in The Hague. Good morning, Ligia. It's a pleasure to see you again and to be with you again. Ligia Koijen Ramos is our expert today and actually this year for our series. And she's also the CEO at Into Motivation. Welcome to you all for our second workshop on creating a company culture that everyone feels connected to. Thank you for joining us this second time around. We had a good crowd during our first workshop in March. But we practically doubled the participation this time in the registration side. So no surprise there, as there is a clear equation between the 2023 hiring, engagement and retention issues faced by our clients, and Ligia's main intention to help you recognize that culture can be built intentionally, company culture that is, and that it will take it will make everything go smoothly within your organization, as well as helping you solve everyday issues that you are facing at the moment. Thank you for the returning participants. For the new participants, if you haven't done so yet, I would encourage you to go on our events page on www.undutchables.nl and rewatch or watch the recording of the first workshop that we did with Ligia on March 30th, as it will give you the initial clues for the series, as Ligia went through the various dimensions of culture, starting with values, rituals, heroes, and signals. And obviously, that was for the very quick recap from last time. And after exploring those dimensions, today in this workshop, Ligia will help us literally plant the cultural decor of our organization. Ligia?
Yes.
I'm glad you can hear me.
I can hear you, yes.
Are you both ready, you and Ducky Duck?
Yes, we are both ready, totally ready. So thank you so much for introducing the second workshop, and welcome everyone to the second workshop. And we are going to focus today in how to create the culture that will make our organization more wanted. And how can we create also a culture that people feel engaged with? And this, at least what I'm getting these days, is that is a problem, is becoming a real problem, and how to drive an organization in a way that people feel engaged with, that people want to stay with, and also that people are willing to give the maximum of their performance to. So I think the main thing that we are facing at this moment is how to drive an organization that, of course, still needs people. And seems like people changed, and society and the organization that we are getting these days also changed. So my proposal today is really to make it really practical. How can you or do it by yourself because you have that position, or support to your organization the creation of a culture that is relevant for the organization? And I think this is the starting point. What we also saw in the first workshop is that, of course, we benchmark, okay? We go around and we see what other companies are doing. We go a little bit around and we are going to take from some other companies what we believe that works for them. And that is fine. I'm a fan of benchmarking, but, and it's a big but here, okay? The creation of a cultural company, an organizational culture needs to be intentional. That means that that culture needs to serve the purpose of the organization and not the opposite. So you are not going to create a culture and then creating a purpose for the organization. So first of all, the first thing to do is to realize what is the main intention, what is the vision, and what is the mission of your organization. That is the starting point. Why do we exist? Why we are here? Yeah, that is the starting point. Then we are going to create the roller coaster for, or the, yeah, it's not really a roller, can be a roller coaster, but it's also a snowball. We want everything to be aligned. One of the biggest issues that I find in organizations is the silos. So is the creation of something that doesn't connect with, for instance, sometimes the rest of the departments. I hear this a lot, like someone created this values, for instance, that we don't know even what this is some words that we don't know exactly what this means. I hear this more than I should, to be honest. So it's important to create congruency. That's how we call it technically. So everything needs to be aligned. So when you are designing a company or organization cultural, I really advise to draw it. I really advise to pick up a good place in your office or home and really draw the circles, do a very visual diagram of what this culture will be, okay? And also use that as a representation of what the company's vision and mission is. So, like I said, we cannot go through a full recap from the first workshop, because then, yeah, we will lose the opportunity for the second one. I really advise you to get a view on the first workshop, because it's the principles of a culture. So get a little bit more aware what makes a culture, okay? And then this workshop will be more practical, but also will make a lot of sense. The first question that I get a lot of times is, what is culture in the end? Okay, what is this all about? And in a very practical and simple way, culture is the way we do things around here. So when you get the notion, okay, what is our organizational culture, is really asking people and really hear when people say, this is the way we do things around here. And this can be anything, can be in terms of procedures, can be in terms of communication, can be in terms of even the way people act in the office. For instance, the other day I was in a company, was really interesting. I was working with a leadership team. So we were talking about, they were 25 leaders, and in the company they have like a culture that we don't have fixed places to sit. So it's an open space and anyone can sit whenever they want. But the interesting part is that we were doing the workshop and someone said, yeah, but a lot of times you sit on my desk. I'm like, wait, but you don't have that, but they have, okay? So this is an example how the ideal culture is not the real culture of the organization, okay? People still go and sit in the same place every day. They cannot just have their own things there because it's not allowed. But they still feel a little bit upset when someone is going and takes their desk. So this is an example that someone created this procedure that, and this idea of the culture, like we don't have fixed places, but the reality is that they have. Okay, so this is something that we want to avoid. We want that if we have something that is a procedure, or something that we stand for as an organization, we need to make that alive. And we cannot do that without people. So if people still feel that they will work better, they prefer to have a fixed place, we need to hear that. Doesn't matter if I don't know, I'm HR and I decide that no, let's try this of the flexible places. People don't want that. So the way that we do things around here will be, yeah, we have a procedure, but no one does that. So we don't want to create that situation, okay? So the first thing to do when we want to create a culture in our company or change the culture of our company is starting by hearing and getting the sense how we do things around here. That is the first thing that needs to be done, is the recognition that we have, let's say, different types of cultures. We have the assumed culture that everyone thinks, no, this is the values, this is what is written there. Then we have the current culture, what is really happening. And we have the paradise culture, like the ideal thing, what we are looking for, and wow, that will be amazing. And then we have the strategic culture, okay? It's important that before you go anywhere, you start anything, that you really know what is the current culture. And that process, let me tell you, can be painful. Because sometimes you're going to realize that, oh my God, we are so far from whatever we had an ideal or whatever we had as, even in sometimes in procedures. The amount of times that I find that people have a procedure and no one inside of the company respects the procedure. Everyone is doing a different thing. So getting the awareness, what is exactly the current culture, is the main thing. And believe me, every organization has a culture already, okay? So it's not, sometimes I hear people saying, oh yeah, but why I need to borrow, why I need to think about a culture? Because you have one already. But maybe that culture is not supporting what you want for the company. The culture is not supporting the vision and the purpose of the company. And then we start having problems, okay? Another thing, so that is the first step, okay? So maybe let's do an exercise just for you so to interact. I'm going to ask you, when you are interacting with people, as a cultural purpose, it's nice that people can see your face. Because talking to a name in a black square is a little bit strange. So I'm going to propose a small exercise in groups. And I want you to share, or at least reflect together, one thing that is in your current culture that you detected already, like, this thing is our current culture, and maybe something that is not supporting fully the vision or the mission of my organization. Clear the exercise? Yes, I see some hands, the ones that are here. Okay, so I will not do that, but someone that is in the back will be doing that. They will put you in groups. You have more or less like 2 minutes. So just a little bit of this is what I observe already. That is one aspect of the culture that is not fully, is in the current culture, but is not fully corresponding to our, is not supporting, is not helping the vision or the mission of my organization. Yeah, so in groups, 2 minutes, just bounce a little bit ideas, and then we come back to the main group and we see what happens. Yeah, okay. Everyone is back. Okay, super. Someone wants to share. Someone wants to say, oh, I realized this, or this was, or even sometimes happens like, oh my God, we have the same. We have the same issue here. Someone wants to share? Open mic. Yeah, I think you are not alone on that one. I think you are really not alone in that one, because I realized that, like I said before, is really a painful sometimes realization, and sometimes for also HR and people that are in the lead, sometimes they're like, but why we are still going through this? So I think it's that is I will say that is the status, that is the general status. Okay, people tend not to measure culture. What is incredible, because people tend to measure a lot of things in organizations, but not a lot of organizations, they do measurement on culture. And that is a pity, because the issue starts there. The most part of the issue starts in the organizational culture. Yeah. Great example. Great example. Because sometimes what happens also in organizations is that we are focused on the client and the outside, but everything needs to be aligned. I normally say, I cannot give what I don't have. Right? So if my own team doesn't feel empowered, my own team doesn't feel like, okay, we are growing, we are developing, I probably will not be able to offer that to anyone else. At least not, of course, sometimes in the product, I can offer that because the product is done for that. But as an attitude to the client, I cannot offer that. One example also, just to use your example that I really appreciate, is another thing that sometimes, for instance, you have that purpose to empower the client. And then when we go through the communication with the client, we are always offering the solution. So for instance, we are always saying to the client, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. So like, the communication also needs to be reinforcing that purpose. But that is a great example. Yes. So that is what means alignment. Yeah. So I have a purpose, and it's not only, I'm not doing halfway, I'm doing it in full way, and everything is aligned. Great example. Anyone else wants to share? Just continue. That's great. What I always say is that if works, just continue. That's the good part. Sometimes the challenge is, of course, how can we maintain the things that are really working, right? And to make sure that whatever is working is going to continue for many years. And yeah, that sometimes is the thing. How can we keep evolving, and how can we keep growing? But yeah, if works. That's it. I will now give you a perspective about, okay, we already get the notion. Sometimes we need to adapt or change things. Sometimes we don't, because everything seems okay. But again, can we maintain this? The idea is also, okay, can we maintain also this? One of the things that we need to pay attention when we are creating a cultural company, organizational culture, is that we need to think about 3 aspects, okay? And that is connected with safety. So we need to create a physical safe environment. We need to create a mental safe environment, and we need to create an environment that is safe. What I see a lot of times is that when sometimes we are talking about culture, we forget this combination of things. So we tend to think about more the mental, like what is the behavior that people are doing, and we put a lot of pressure on that, what people need to be doing, but we sometimes forget for instance, the physical safety. And sometimes people say to me, yeah, but we are just a service company, so we don't have issues with physical safety. Think again. So the way, for instance, people sit, the way people use the facilities, where people are sitting, that is physical safety. Okay, I'm very insisting on this point. For instance, if you have someone sitting with their back to a door, this person will never feel physically safe. Because it's a human thing. We hear a sound, we hear people, and the first reflex is saying, this is okay. But of course, we are working and we learn that we are not always to turn our heads, but we still have the reaction to it. So physical safety also is about this. For instance, noises, the noise of people walking around, and if they pass really next to your desk, that can promote physically unsafety. Not to talk about, of course, organizations that have more issues with security, like pharmaceuticals or companies that are really into that, and then you have all the obligations for safety. But also, and what I see is that a lot of companies don't really think about this. They don't put this on the frame of culture. And we need to create a culture that interacts with these three elements: physical, mental, and environment. We cannot just go for one of them, okay? Because then will not be integrated, and people will still feel that disalignment. Like, okay, you are now so worried that, for instance, I have a company that I go, and it's so funny because they have really a rigid procedure that when we go to the stairs, when we do the stairs, we need to hold how do you say, the rail?
Yeah, the rail. Yeah.
We need to hold that. So every time that I go there and I'm not doing it, I have someone in my back say, Ligia, your hand. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, you know, so very aware of the physical safety, but not so aware on the mental safety. So people sometimes can say things that are a little bit more aggressive kind of thing. So it's important that when we are creating a culture, we always go for the frame of safety, because that will create trust. If people feel safe, they will trust. The big issue with engagement is the bomb or not. Maybe it's like, oh, okay, I know that. Trust. People don't engage because they don't trust. They don't feel safe some way, somehow. So our main goal is to create that safety. Is saying, okay, we have a purpose, we have a vision, we are going to be so congruent on designing a culture that represents that people know what they can count on. Most part of the times when I talk with people, people are not trusting. Like, I don't trust. They say one thing and they do another. They look for this, they are after me because I don't do what I should be doing, but yeah, my leader also doesn't. Or that colleague is doing a totally different thing. Why should I be doing this? It's trust. is people need to feel safe in all matters. Okay. I'm going to give a silly example. I like silly examples. Okay. I don't know. I have a car and I really like my car. It's a safe car, you know. I'm not going to do the brand, but it's the cars that you will be getting as the safest car in the world. Okay. I go on holidays with my kids, and for me, safety is important, of course. I have 3 children, and my car starts giving a smoke, like smoke, comes a smoke from the front of the car, was a frame of seconds. And my head was, I'm going to sell the car. Nothing more happened with the car. The car is going still really well. But it's amazing. How can I be with a car for many years? I trust the car. I take the car. My idea of the car is a safe car, but he shows me some smoke, and in a frame of seconds, I go like, I'm going to sell it. This is what happens with your teams. They go like, yeah, I like this company. I feel super engaged. A small thing happened, like, I'm out. I'm going out. I'm start searching. You know, it's a frame of seconds. Believe me, normally it's not years. It's one frame of second that people decide, I'm going to start looking for something else. And then they evolved and they start looking for things to justify that decision. But the decision normally is a frame of seconds. Okay, so that's why trust and safe is important. So, any questions about this? Yes, unfortunately, yes. Why? Because comes with a lot of rules. What happens is that the role normally doesn't come associated with the rest, so comes as a police officer. Like, this person is here to make sure that we have everything in order. So this role doesn't come as someone that is there to support, comes as someone that is there to see if we are doing the rules. And that is the shift that sometimes needs to happen. Like, okay, I'm here also to support you. I'm here to inform. I'm here to sometimes teach. So the role, is a lot of rules. So that makes that people see that role also as that, like someone is here just seeing if I do this right or not. So this the main thing is maybe to change the communication of the role, but also the behavior of people that are associated with that role, so that they can, for instance, provide more support instead of so much rules. Like, for instance, I don't know, organizing some types of different workshops that teach people things that are valid and useful, for instance. Could be a way to shift a little bit the perspective of the role. Yeah, okay. I would like to tell you 3 things to continue. People engage with culture, not strategy. And this is very important. So what I see a lot is that, oh, let's create a strategy and let's create here roles, and that creates a plan and what we need to be doing and a lot of tasks, and people don't engage with that. But people engage with culture. People engage with what is happening around them. The second thing is culture is learned. So even your national culture, you learned it. So it's not like, oh, I was born, I don't know, in my case, Portuguese, okay? You learn that. So that is a good news, because means that people can learn a new culture, okay? Culture is a group phenomenon. So you can have great intentions by yourself, but needs to be transported to a group dynamic, okay? Because it's a group thing. That's why if you are an HR, please don't do culture by yourself. Don't do it like, okay, now I had a great idea and I'm here to present the new culture or the new values of the company. Don't do that, because people will automatically reject you, you know, even if they agree. But because it was not a group dynamic, is someone coming and imposing something on that. And another thing, incredibly, is that culture only exists by comparison. You only know that you are, in my case, Portuguese, when I go to France and I go like, oh, this is different. Or when I came to, oh yeah, exactly. When I came to Holland, I'm like, oh, this is different. Okay. So the thing is that we only realize culture when comes a comparison point, or some people compare with their previous work or with themselves. Like, I don't do things like this. I don't work like this. Then culture becomes relevant, becomes a thing, okay? So that means that when we are building a new culture, we need to promote learning moments. You cannot just write down the values of the company in the wall, and or whatever, or do a procedure and expect that people do that. Needs to be learning moments for the culture. Okay, you need to give learning moments. Second of all, you need to create group dynamic. So, and ideally, even intergroup dynamics, so that you can see, okay, this, for instance, this department together with that department, how each one of them leaves the culture, and create a dynamic that they can compare things. Okay. Another thing is that I sometimes see is that people, when they are building a new culture or they want to influence a new culture, they tend to reject automatically the previous culture. No, because you need a point of comparison. Don't pretend that the old culture, let's put it this way, is not there anymore. It's still there. So you need to reinforce, like, we are going to do things differently, because that is when people have the comparison point. And sometimes what I see is that, no, like we had this, I don't know, these values or these behaviors before, now we are going to totally do a different thing, without saying, what is the difference? Why we let go of this one and we start this one? What is the intention of that? So don't let go and pretend that the previous culture was not there. Reinforce by comparing and saying, this is why we are doing things differently, and this is our intention, and reinforce that also people can compare the two cultures. Make sense what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I see this a lot, like, wow, let's create something new, you know, and then we just do that and we forget that people need this time to compare and to build up. Okay. Any questions about this?
Actually, if I make just one remark to connect with the first workshop,
yeah.
Because you mentioned the fact that in the learning process, then you have a lot of repetition that's necessary to build that culture.
Yes.
And so maybe the question is, I mean, you've been within Into Motivation since 1996. So how long does it take to build that culture?
Cultures change slowly because it's a group dynamic. So you don't have everyone going at the same time. Okay. But the thing is that some things in culture will take more time than others. Okay. For instance, behaviors, they tend to be faster. Values, they tend to be slower. Okay. So that is what we need to, in the dimensions, we know that each one of the dimensions has a different timing to happen. So behaviors is a more easy thing to change. But the thing is that if they are not sustainable with the values, for instance, they tend, a longer term, they tend to go back to what they were. So that's why in culture, we need to change all the dimensions a little bit at the same time. But we cannot expect that, for instance, a person will change their beliefs from one day to another. But they can change their behavior. If I say to someone now, instead of this, you need to do that, sometimes from one day to another, people can do in a different way. They continue not being efficient because they need to create the habit, but they can do it, right? But the belief takes a little bit longer, for instance, or the value that supports that behavior takes a little bit longer to be installed as a routine. Sometimes what happens is that, like I said, people culture is an habit. Okay. So, and a lot of times you only recognize, let me put it this way, how bad your culture is when you are exposed to a new one, when you have that comparison point. Okay. So sometimes helps to say, okay, but this culture that we have now, where is taking us? And sometimes it's showing how the culture that we have right now is not allowing us, for instance, to grow or to get the results that we want. Okay. I'm going to give you an example. I have a company that I work with, and one of the things that no one was complaining, okay, was that everyone could go out of the company the time that they wanted. So there was no kind of register of the times that they were working, was no one controlling. No one wants to change that, if you know what I mean. But the thing is that the company was like hiring a lot of people. And when I entered the company, I said, okay, you have too many people. And they're like, no, but we need them. I said, no, you don't. But you need them by the structure that is created, that when we start measuring, some people that were paid for 40 hours, they were working 30, some of them 24. Okay. And I said, yeah, it's painful, but it's a culture that is here that you can continue, but this is not going to be good. So sometimes we need to go to the wound and saying, hey, this is not going to take us to the place that we want to be in, I don't know, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, that depends. And yes, sometimes people don't want to change because they are well with that, you know, but the way that things are done right now is not going to take us there. And what I also sometimes see is that some people are really highly satisfied by the minimum of the results that they can have. I normally say 20% of whatever is happening in your company in terms of profit or whatever is like normal, because people like your product is needed, whatever you are doing it serves someone somehow. Okay, 20% of people will never buy your product because they don't need it, they don't see any relevance in it. The rest is work. And what I see a lot of times is that people and organizations, they get satisfied by the 20%. That is normal. So yeah, sometimes people say, okay, this culture works. And I say, works for what? For the 20%? Or you want to go for the other 80 or other 60 that is not there yet? So that is the thing, is that sometimes the results that we are getting right now, they can satisfy us, but means that we cannot do more, or means that we are not doing more. So that is sometimes what we need also to pay attention to. I hope I replied to the question. That means that the organizational culture is not strong enough. Because think about this. You can detect very easily what is the industry that people are working in, just by the way they dress. You can, so that is how culture works. People want to belong. When people are not belonging, and for instance, the national culture takes over inside of the organization, just means that the organizational culture is not structured, is not safe, is not sometimes, sometimes the culture is that, is like everyone does whatever they want. Yeah. So that means that when I enter a company and I don't get the full, for instance, in terms of communication, I go like, oh, this company, they talk like this, or they talk like that, or even expressions, means that maybe the culture that is there right now is everyone does whatever they want. So that is one of the, yeah. The other day, for instance, I was in a company and they had a value. I don't know if I told this example in the first one. Creativity. Okay, one of the values of the company was creativity. And then they were telling me, oh, but yeah, I don't understand what is happening. We put something out and everyone has an opinion about it. Like, of course, you have creativity. And creativity is not only a good thing, makes people to always get the idea that they can bring in new scenarios, the what if, and what if we do something else? So sometimes we need to be aware, not only the positivity of value, but yeah, what is the counterpart of the value? And for instance, they had that one. So when departments, and of course, each department will be living the organizational culture in a different way, okay? But we still need to have a framework that, like, okay, you use these values in a different way, you have different possibilities of using the values, but we have a framework that is the same. I'm going to give you an example. I work in the fashion industry and we have the same values for everyone and the same culture. But of course, the design group, the creativity, the creative, the fashion designers, they had a very specific way of doing that culture than the finance people. Yeah, but we have still the common ground. We are still in the same framework. So we need to be able to get together and saying, okay, we are still in the same values, we still have the same beliefs, and we have an attitude, and that attitude is the same. We are going to express it, maybe in different ways, even the way that we dress, the way that we present ourselves, but some things there will be the same. Thank you for that example. I think is a great one. One of the things that I see also companies not doing is that, okay, I have a value. The value doesn't serve anything if you are not able to determine the behaviors that you want to be seeing, hearing, and feeling with that value.
Correct.
So for instance, all your performance review needs to be with behaviors that are connected with your values. Nothing more, nothing less. So you have a value. For instance, one for all, how was it?
All for one,
one for all.
Okay. What that means, and this to be, and it's not what means in theoretical and very abstract way. No, what is the behaviors? What is the attitude? And what is the belief that is under that? And if you do this, the funny thing is that you have all the performance review done. You don't need to invent anything, okay? And all the companies going to be measured by this. And for instance, of course, I can imagine that HR will have a different weight for this value than, for instance, creative people. And that is the game. So the value is the same, but we'll have a different weight in the performance of HR or in the performance of a fashion designer, okay? But the value is the same. Make sense what I'm saying? Okay. So I want to give you an exercise. So yeah, I love the questions, and I think the questions are super useful, but I also want to give you a time to get a little bit mingle and together. So what I want you to go now for the exercise is like, let's do it like 3 minutes right now to give you a little bit more time. And I want you to go in the group and share, okay, what will be the attitude, can be, or the behavior or the attitude that if we start doing that right now in my company, we could experience already a change in the culture. One, and I can tell you, sometimes you'll need one, okay? One behavior or an attitude that if everyone in the company will start doing that, we could already feel a shift on the culture of the company. Clear the exercise? Okay, so breakout rooms, and we have 3 minutes to bounce some ideas. Yeah? Okay, see you in a bit. Yeah, everyone is back? Okay, so I will continue. So what I will like to tell you now is that is 3 ways that you can really start building up this new culture after doing all this more, let's say, organization of what you're going to do with culture, like values, the behaviors, and writing down and being very explicit about this. One of the ways that most part of the times people don't think about when they are thinking about building a culture is starting in recruitment. A lot of times we think about starting the cultural or the new cultural change with the people that we have inside already. And I will say, you can do it when you are doing recruitment already. To bring inside already people that are doing the culture that you want to. And I know that for people that are in HR, is one fear, is the fear of, will this person survive? So will this person survive if we take a person that is already doing the attitude, the values, the behaviors that we want for the future, when she's inside of a group that is not still doing that? That is where starts the ambassador attitude. You need to give to this person let's say, the awareness that she will be the ambassador of something new. You cannot just say, okay, let's pretend that nothing happened, and let's bring this person inside and let's hope that this person influences everyone. That will not happen, okay? Because like I said, culture is a group phenomenon. So you need to prepare this person that she's going to enter maybe a culture that is still not what you want. And use in a good way this person to be the model, the role model for the future of the organization. Another thing that sometimes people don't think when they are building a new culture is to hear the ones that are outside. You know, these people that are always complaining inside of the organization, the people that are always against something. Hear these people. Go and hear them. These ones are the ones that, and they are complaining. Normally they are not enjoying totally the full spectrum of the culture, but they are staying. If they are staying, means that they are engaged with the values. So if you ask them, okay, what you don't like, what is not working, how other ways of doing this, they could give you great insights for how things need to change. Yeah. Another thing is, again, what I was saying before, make the values vivid. You need to be able to express the values in very practical things. What I need to hear, what do I need to see, and how people or I need to feel when I'm in this value. Yeah? Good. Now, another thing is how to measure, because again, culture will take a little bit time to change, right? But it's good that you don't wait to, okay, everything is done, to measure. You need to continue seeing if the gaps that you detected before, they are being dealt with. How to measure this? Remember, assumed culture. So what do we think that is happening? The current culture, what is really happening, what is working, what is not working, what people got, what people didn't. Then relate that with the ideal culture and always see the gaps, okay? And define always strategies how to increase or decrease the gaps. You need always to be working on it. Is a place, also because you are working with safety and trust, that you cannot just say, okay, let's wait and see what happens. When you want change, when you want this transformation, you need to be always measuring and saying, okay, you put a procedure out or you put a value out. How many people are already doing it? How many people are not doing it yet? And what can I do? Do I need to communicate in a different way? Do I need to do a workshop? Do I need to talk with someone? Do I need to get a new ambassador for this? Always remember that is always a continuous work. Yeah. Culture will change in two ways. Indirect way is with people. So you influence people and you work with people. The direct change for culture is with management. You cannot change a culture just by saying to people what they need to be doing. So if you have new values, if you have new procedures, if you have new communication flow or diagram, the first people to do this in a direct way is the management leadership team. If someone in your leadership team is not doing this, you will have a problem with people. There's no way out. So it's no way out. It's like that. Because again, we are talking about trust and people need to see, okay, we have this value and my leader is doing it. If they don't see this, it's easier for them to give up as well. It's easy for them to say, why me? Why I need to be the one doing this if this person is not? So we, like I said, we have 3 points: creating a culture, values, behavior, attitude, and beliefs. This needs to be all aligned. You need to create the safety and the trust necessary to do this. Then you need to start the culture by implementing the role models. Start with recruitment, start bringing in people that are already doing it, because that will mean less effort for you. Yeah, so they are already doing it. They are already attitude. And make the values vivid. Don't go too abstract. Don't go too theoretical. You need to make this real, day by day. Okay. And second, you need to always measure. And third, you always need to measure. Always, always measure. It's not a thing that you can just wait and see what happens. Yeah.
What is the danger if you don't do anything?
Is that you get a culture that doesn't serve the company, and you will have the biggest consequences is not having the results that you need to continue being a company. So it's really the danger of losing rentability, is the danger of losing productivity, is the dangers of losing the company. So it's a big risk, I will say.
It is.
It's a big risk, and I think we need to be aware that times changed. I have a new article coming on the next Monday, and it's about that. It's like we need to start paying attention. And sometimes a lot of people are talking about the future of work. Okay, it's not the future; it's here right now. It's already here. Okay, and one of the things that we need to start paying attention is how people that will be the future of work. Let's say people with 16, 20, what they are looking for. And let me tell you, they are looking for trust. They will not play the game as we played before. So if you will wait for that, you will be in great trouble. And I want to make you aware that we are not talking anymore, for instance, about small companies closing, or no, we are talking about big companies at this moment closing doors. And this is all about culture. And I know that a lot of people are blaming the product and the crisis. Is about also culture, because the transformation needs to be there. So we need to start working on this with a little bit more intention before we need it, because we will need it. And it's not going to be in 5 years, let me tell you. We will need it. And I think it's important that we realize that the future is not the future. It's here, right now. And so, yeah, that's a big risk, I believe. Thank you for your question. I think everyone that has a leadership role has a responsibility. Yeah, of course, that if I see, and also depends on the dynamic, because for instance, if I see my top leader, so like the top management every day, I will probably pay attention to that person. But for instance, what happens a lot is that I don't see that person so often, but I see my operational manager every day. So yeah, that person is my direct role model for the value. So depends also what is the dynamic of the company and with whom and who I see. If I see my report, and not is not my direct report, but it's above every day, I will look to that person first. Any other question? Any other comment?
I think we are reaching the end, actually.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining. Thank you, Ligia. Again, it was
Thank you.
phenomenal as
Thank you.
always. And enjoy the rest of your Friday and see you next time.